Hey YouTube, this is the art of prepping. So is the H-1 steel that you find on Spyderco knives like this Salt 1, is the H-1 steel a super steel? Is it just a standard steel? Is it above average in some ways, or is it completely just a crap steel? I mean, from what I've seen, it's actually above average. It's just, in my opinion, below like VG10 that Spyderco also puts out, but it's a work hardened steel, this H1. So the more you use it, the more you sharpen it, it actually it gets to be a little bit more, I guess you would call it, it gets a little harder and a little more durable and wear resistant, and I think that it actually becomes more usable and even better over time. I haven't used it enough to know for sure, but I do know that in the serrations, believe it or not, because of the edge geometry, they've actually tested it against VG10, and it actually does better and has more longevity in cutting than VG10. But when you compare straight edge against straight edge, or plain edge against plain edge, against H1 and VG10, the VG10 has the H1 beat. So it depends on edge geometry and grind and just a lot of things. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me sometimes because I'm not into the metal or metallurgy or that field, but just from reading about it though, it's very interesting about steels and how they all work. And as we know, they use nitrogen instead of the carbon for these H1s, and so it has a completely different characteristics than our traditional carbon-based blades. Now, in terms of the question, though, is it the ultimate knife steel? I don't think it's a super steel by any means. It has unbelievable properties like it never rusts. I think that's kind of amazing, if nothing else. But in terms of saying that it actually has this super cutting ability and you almost never need to sharpen it, not so true. But I'd say definitely it beats the majority of blade steels out there, hands down. Now, in terms of, when we talk about VG10, because that's one of the more popular blade steels that Spyderco puts out, of course. And you compare this once again to H1 steel. Should you go and spend the extra money, because it typically costs a little more of a premium, anywhere from 10 to 25% more for the same blade, depending on what model you're looking at and so forth. Should you spend the extra money though to really get the H1? For most people say, hey, if you're not around a lot of salt water and you're not around super heavy, humid, and moist environments, the VG10 is still very rust and corrosion resistant, and it would probably serve you just as well. In fact, they say that this could be a little overkill unless you live right on the ocean to actually get H1 steel. So basically even on the Spyderco forums and stuff, they say pretty much the VG10 should be more than adequate, and it's built to be very, like I said, corrosion resistant. So this is just a bonus. This is just an extra thing you can get with H1 steel. By no means, is it something that you have to have or that you should have, or makes it the ultimate knife. But I will say, though, there's an appeal to it that you can just never maintain this blade. You never have to wipe it down or oil it, and you'll never see any kind of rust. That, to a lot of people, is just amazing. You could just throw this in your tackle box after being in a saltwater environment, fishing in maybe the ocean, for example, and never worry about it. So you do pay a bit of a premium for that, but at the same time, it's up to you what you need and want and where you live. But for me, though, most of my blades, almost all of them, in fact, from Spyderco is just VG10, and they have no rust problems. I've had them for many years. I do take care of them, though, so I'm not saying that I've ever tried to push them very far. But I'm not saying that I'll buy another H1 blade steel. I'm not sure if I'll even need that. But if I ever do get another, Spyderco knife, which is a high possibility, I'll look into it, to see if H1 steel is available for that model. But if it's not, no big deal. H1's cool and everything, but at the same time, the price points for the VG10 and the performance of the VG10 meet and exceed even my needs. So sometimes you can go a little overboard on blade steels. Just like if I want to get some kind of super steel, maybe like an S3090V or what, something maybe higher than that. Something that's like off the chart exotic. that you know you're paying a real premium for would be kind of, in my opinion, kind of almost ridiculous. For example, like a keychain knife that I have on my keychain, for example, that I hardly ever even use, maybe a couple times a month at most for opening a letter or something. That would be a waste, in my opinion. Now, if it's something that you use constantly, then that's a different story. But for like my example, I have that Spyderco bird finch and the HCR 13 MOV on my keychain, and like I said, I hardly ever use it, and when I do use it, it works perfect. And it hardly has any type of any rust, any issues. I just kind of oil it once a month, and I keep it sharpened, and it's good to go. Just like this H-1 or any VG10. If you kind of just keep up with it, not that you really have to keep up with the H-1, but I like to kind of just wipe off any dirt or grime, just so that it actually functions, and I mean functions, I mean talking about the movement and the mechanics of it. But in terms of the blade steel, you don't ever have to worry about it. So anyways, I'm going to stop rambling here. The H-1 steel is definitely not crap steel. It's definitely not even average steel. It's above average, but it's not a super steel. Thanks for watching. Catch you real soon.